What if I told you that the most powerful move you can make today is to do nothing for a single, deliberate moment, and that this pause, held with awareness, is the very hinge on which your next outcome swings? If you're seeing this, you're already inside a test. Not the kind with bubbles and pencils, but the kind life gives when timelines fork. One path repeats an old loop because you rush through it. The other opens because you chose to notice before you move. The ancients drew bridges to cross their rivers. The modern mind builds bridges across seconds. I call this bridge the gap. On one side is the usual trigger, an email, a glance, a memory that sweeps you away like water. On the other side is the observer, the still field within you that doesn't flinch. The Quantum Zeno Effect, translated into human terms, whispers a strange instruction. What you watch with steady attention tends to hold, and what you rush past tends to scatter. In the lab, it reads like probability. In a kitchen, at 8:03 a.m., it reads like you catching your breath before you answer. And because you caught it, everything else holds still long enough to change. Imagine the test you're facing today: money pressure, a complicated conversation, a decision you've postponed. The old loop is predictable. Trigger, breath quickens, meaning hardens, action fires, evidence returns to prove the old story true. You call it fate, but it's a script. Here's the pattern interrupt. Pause. Not as avoidance, not as weakness, not as mysticism for mysticism's sake, but as precise leverage. A single coherent pause is you stepping onto the riverbank while the water keeps moving. You become the one who witnesses the current rather than the one swept by it. In that held second, the world does not freeze. Your identity does. The story stops just long enough for you to edit one line. That edit is everything, because when you pause with awareness, you encode a different instruction into the moment. I am the observer. I choose the next frame. You don't need complicated breathing counts yet. You don't need a retreat. You need the courage to be still for one beat longer than the impulse that wants to run your day. This is not medical advice. It's an educational map, the kind you unfold on the hood of your car when the road splits and the signs feel unclear. The map says, attention is a sculptor. Hold a thing in soft, steady sight and you give it shape. Flinch, and it collapses into the old fog. Think about the last time you spoke too soon and wished for a do-over. The do-over lives inside the pause. Think about the last time you waited 3 extra seconds and watched the other person reveal the truth you would have missed. The revelation lived inside the pause. The Quantum Zeno Effect, borrowed as metaphor, is a vow to keep noticing long enough that your coherence becomes the frame, not your fear. Today's test is not pass or fail. It's notice or repeat. If you notice, the loop loosens. If you repeat, the loop tightens. Choose the bridge, choose the gap, choose the observer seated in stillness while the storm rehearses its lines. We begin with one breath you refuse to spend on panic. We begin with 1 second you refuse to abandon. We begin by pausing on purpose, so that reality has a reason to meet you where you truly are. You wake up and the loop is already humming. A notification flashes trigger. Your breath shifts before your thoughts do. A micro flinch in the ribs that tells your nervous system danger is near state. From that altered breath you assign meaning. I'm behind. I'm late. I'm not enough meaning. That meaning ignites the same rehearsed behavior. Rush, prove, defend, avoid action. And then life, obedient as a mirror, delivers matching results. Missed details, clipped words, closed doors, evidence. The evidence returns to the beginning of the loop and crowns the meaning as truth. You don't notice the circularity because the loop travels faster than attention. It feels like reality. It's actually velocity. The loop is not malicious. It's practiced. Reality keeps serving you the dish you order with your state. And because the order is placed beneath awareness, you keep insisting the kitchen is wrong. This is the crisis beneath ordinary crises. Not that circumstances repeat, but that we mistake repetition for fate. The mechanism is simple, elegant, and ruthless. Trigger breath divided by state, meaning action, evidence. Swap the order and the loop evaporates. Misread the second step and the loop hardens. Most people try to fix the loop at the action layer by forcing new behaviors, or at the meaning layer by swapping slogans. But the hinge sits earlier, at the breath divided by state door where perception is cast. Your breath is not merely oxygen management. It is a tempo setter for attention. When the breath shortens and climbs, attention narrows and scans for threat. Narrow attention edits reality down to whatever confirms the scan. This is not a clinical diagnosis. It's a human pattern. The shorter the breath, the tighter the edit. The tighter the edit, the harsher the meaning. The harsher the meaning, the more mechanical the action. The more mechanical the action, the more familiar the evidence. You call it, how it always goes with me. It's how it goes when the editor is panic. The Quantum Zeno metaphor puts a lens on this. What is continuously observed tends to hold. In a crisis of perception, you have been continuously observing the world through the aperture of urgency. So urgency holds. You check your messages just to be safe, and every check glues the frequency of alarm to your timeline. You rehearse a complaint just to vent, and every rehearsal freezes the complaint into the next scene. This is why the loop feels sticky. Your observation style rushed, contracted, confirmatory stabilizes the very pattern you want to escape. The moment you try to outrun it, you look at it harder with fear, and fear's stare keeps it in place. It is a strange prison. The bars are made of your gaze. Now add meaning. Meaning is how you label what your body just encoded. If your breath divided by state says, tighten, prepare, defend, your mind annotates the world with labels that match. They're judging me. This deal will collapse. I'm about to fail the test. These labels are not facts. They're captions. But captions influence frames. Under pressure, you don't see people as people. You see captions you wrote for them while breathing like you were being chased. Those captions are cruel editors. They cut scenes early, discard nuance, and leave you with a highlight reel of proof that life is exactly as harsh as you feared. And then, right on time, action follows labels. You rush your reply. You undercut your ask. You choose speed over precision. The world responds faithfully to the tone you brought, and the evidence returns. See? I was right. You weren't right. You were rehearsed. There is a subtler crisis hidden here. You have been confusing familiarity with truth. The loop's rhythm is seductive because it feels practiced, and practiced feels safe. But practice without presence becomes trance. The trance is thinking, this is just me, when actually it is just momentum. Momentum wears your face, borrows your voice, and signs your name on choices that don't serve you. You feel small inside a life that keeps confirming your smallness, and you conclude, I must be small. The loop claps. That is the moment the bridge matters. When you notice the trigger, if you step onto the riverbank for a breath, the second step state stops cascading. By pausing, you keep the camera from snapping to its old autofocus. You do not deny the trigger. You deny it immediate custody over your breath. You say, without words, I will choose the editor. Think of the pause as a lens change rather than a break. Most people fear pausing because they believe it will make them fall behind. But the pause does not slow you. It sharpens you. You are not withholding action. You are upgrading perception. A single, intentional breath returns peripheral vision to your options, to the other person's humanity, to the field of possibility around what looks fixed. Without that breath, you grab the nearest story and swing it like a tool. With that breath, you touch the gap, and the gap touches back with choice. Then meaning can be reauthored. This email is a request, not a verdict. This silence is space, not rejection. This test measures presence, not perfection. Meaning softens, action adjusts, evidence surprises you. The loop loosens not because you fought it, but because you observed it differently. There is another layer to the crisis. Speed disguises identity. When you sprint through your day, you cannot tell the difference between who you are and what you fear. Everything feels personal because everything is processed at the speed of protection. The observer, your still field, does not live at that speed. It lives at the speed of noticing. You don't have to sit on a cushion to meet it. You can meet it at the doorway between inhale and exhale, while standing in line, while deciding whether to send that message, while looking into someone's eyes. This doorway does not remove difficulty. It removes inevitability. The river still moves. You stop mistaking the river for yourself. So the perceptual crisis is not that life is against you. It's that life is extremely responsive to the lens you use. The mechanism is not shaming you. It is inviting you. Trigger breath, divided by state, meaning action, evidence. Put your pause at the second step and the entire arc shifts. Put your pause at the fifth step after the evidence and you'll call it destiny. Today, you pass the test, not by proving anything to the world, but by refusing to let urgency assign meaning before awareness arrives. You pause, you encode, and the bridge holds long enough for a new frame to form. That is how loops end, not with a bang, but with a breath that chooses a kinder editor. You've been told that reality is solid, a fixed backdrop on which your life plays out. But when you begin to notice the subtle link between your awareness and what unfolds, you start to see that matter isn't the prison, it's the mirror. The Quantum Zeno Effect, stripped of its equations, says something astonishing in human language. What you hold in observation tends to stay as it is. What you stop measuring stops being the same. Observation itself influences what's real. Scientists may call it a paradox of probability. You, however, feel it every day as the strange weight of attention. The gaze you sustain organizes the world around it. The gaze you neglect collapses. You are not a passive witness in a static universe. You are a sculptor carving time with consciousness. Think about this through feeling, not theory. Have you ever stared at someone you love until the rest of the room dissolved? For that moment, they were all that existed. Time stilled. Everything extraneous fell away. That stillness was your field holding its form through observation. Now imagine applying that same quiet attention to your own inner world. When you observe a thought instead of fighting it, you hold it in coherence. It becomes visible enough to evolve. But when you turn away in fear, the thought grows jagged, distorted by avoidance, repeating until it's noticed. The field is compassionate but strict. What you observe consciously transforms. What you ignore in unconsciousness hardens. At the emotional level, this means every moment is a small laboratory of creation. If your attention constantly loops around anxiety, the field learns that shape, as if saying, "Anxiety is her chosen structure, keep rendering it." When you soften attention into coherence, you emit a different pattern, and the field, obedient as light through a prism, refracts reality differently. The observer effect isn't some abstract quirk of subatomic particles. It's a description of your nervous system's relationship with possibility. The heart's electromagnetic field, which modern research measures, pulses outward in rhythmic waves. Your breath tunes it. When the rhythm steadies, your inner weather clears, and coherence, a kind of luminous alignment, appears. You can feel it. In coherence, even your smallest actions carry a resonance that steadies others. Most people think change begins with decision, but decisions made from incoherence wobble like reflections in disturbed water. True change begins in stillness, the pause that lets the water calm so you can see the sky again. The Quantum Zeno Effect invites you to understand why. Constant observation of a chaotic pattern freezes chaos in place. That's why worrying never solves. It sustains. Every check, every what if, is an unconscious measurement that keeps the possibility alive. But conscious observation is different. It's not staring with fear, it's seeing with presence. Presence doesn't pin things down. It liberates them to reorganize. When you pause today, you are performing a small act of quantum compassion. You are saying to the field, "I see this. I'm willing to let it settle under awareness rather than react through habit." In that microsecond, you transform measurement into meditation. Time slows. Probabilities shift. The unseen mathematics of your life rearrange toward coherence. It's subtle but unmistakable. The call that once made you tense now arrives softer. The person who used to trigger you feels less sharp. You interpret silence as space rather than rejection. Reality hasn't changed yet. You have changed the lens through which it stabilizes. Emotional coherence feels like a hum, a low vibration of agreement between breath and heartbeat. Incoherence feels like static, dissonance between what you desire and what you fear. The act of noticing, without recoil, invites harmony. That harmony is not imagination. It's the language of the field responding to alignment. Imagine standing before two metronomes ticking out of phase. When placed on the same surface, their motions gradually synchronize through shared vibration. You and reality share that same surface, the field. Your awareness is the connecting plank. Each time you choose calm observation over reflex, you move closer to phase lock with possibility. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about refining the way you witness it. Anger, sadness, joy, they're quantum states, waves of energy collapsing into experience. When you identify as them, you drown. When you observe them, you surf. Conscious observation doesn't mute feeling. It gives feeling permission to complete its cycle without hijacking identity. The field then reads your emotional honesty as coherence, not chaos. That's why healing never comes from pretending positivity. It comes from authentic noticing without panic. In that honesty, light organizes itself. When you understand this, the words pause and test gain new meaning. The test isn't whether life will give you peace. It's whether you can hold attention long enough for peace to reveal itself. The pause isn't an escape. It's recalibration, your conscious participation in the universe's constant becoming. The Quantum Zeno metaphor reminds you that awareness is not idle. It's creative. You are not watching life happen. You are holding life still, just long enough for it to remember your intention. This is the emotional heart of quantum living. Every feeling, every breath, every glance you give carries information into the field. The field never punishes, never rewards, it mirrors. So when you feel trapped in repetition, don't fight the loop. Observe it with tenderness. Observation dissolves contraction. Contraction dissolves distortion. Distortion dissolves suffering. The test you're facing is simply this. Can you hold attention without flinching? Because in that single, steady gaze, the next version of you is waiting to take form. Long before anyone spoke of particles and probability, ancient civilizations understood this dance of attention and form through symbols, breath, and story. The Egyptians spoke of Ma'at, the living principle of balance, truth, and order. They said the universe did not run on chaos or control but on equilibrium, like the precise tilt of a feather weighed against the human heart. To live out of alignment with that balance was to fall from coherence, to let the heart grow heavy with haste and distortion. Every pause in their rituals, every measured silence in their temples, was not empty. It was a recalibration to Ma'at, a remembrance that stillness is what lets the cosmos keep its symmetry. Picture those vast corridors of stone, the hieroglyphs carved deep into golden light. Between each chant, there was space, a deliberate nothing that was everything. The initiate learned not just the words but the intervals between them. For the Egyptians knew that creation didn't come from sound alone. It came from the silence that held sound. That pause between the two, the breath before the word, was the field where gods and humans met. The same field you touch each time you breathe consciously today. The pause is the temple doorway. Breath is the key. Meanwhile, in the East, the Buddha taught anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing as a bridge between suffering and release. He didn't describe quantum states, yet he described precisely what they behave like. Observe the breath, he said, as it goes in, as it goes out. Notice how simple that instruction is, yet how it stops the world. By watching the inhale and exhale without grasping, you stabilize awareness, just as the Quantum Zeno principle stabilizes what's observed. The ancient monks would sit for hours not to escape the world, but to feel it reorganize under their calm gaze. They noticed that the breath was not merely air, but a carrier of awareness, a vehicle of noticing that linked body to cosmos. In the Hebrew mystic tradition, the breath was called ruach, the wind of God moving over the waters of creation. It was the bridge between visible and invisible, the whisper through which form took instruction. To inhale consciously was to receive spirit. To exhale consciously was to release it back. Between those two winds, the in and the out, was neshama, the soul's quiet witness, untouched by turbulence. This rhythm of ruach and neshama is the same as the sky and the clouds. The clouds form and dissolve, yet the sky remains unchanged. The ancients weren't poets of escape. They were physicists of the unseen, mapping the subtle architecture of attention before science gave it equations. The tree of life from the Kabbalah offers another vision of this continuum. Each sphere, or sephira, is a state of consciousness through which divine energy descends into manifestation. But the descent only happens through the middle pillar balance. Awareness, the observer line. When the current rushes too far to one side, too rigid, too chaotic, the tree tilts. Only the breath of balance restores flow. The middle pillar is your spinal column, your axis of coherence. When you pause and breathe evenly, you activate that pillar, letting light descend without resistance. You become, in living form, the bridge between heaven and earth. The mystics, the monks, the temple architects, all were saying the same thing. Creation requires stillness as its frame. The pause is not an intermission between moments. It's the medium through which moments exist. Without the gap, there is no rhythm, no meaning, no time. The ancients learned to rest in that gap so reality could keep creating through them. They called it balance, meditation, divine breath. You might call it coherence, but the essence is identical. What is observed with peace aligns with peace. In ancient Egypt, initiates underwent the weighing of the heart, where the soul was measured against Ma'at's feather. It wasn't moral bookkeeping, it was physics of consciousness. The heavy heart was the one burdened by unexamined reaction, by loops of fear and grasping. The light heart belonged to the one who had learned to pause before every act, to breathe before every judgment, to let stillness edit impulse. The Quantum Zeno metaphor lives there. Observation stills motion. Each pause is the weighing, each breath, a chance to rebalance the scales. Imagine yourself walking through that symbolic hall now. The air is thick with quiet. Columns rise like frozen breaths. In your hand, a single feather, weightless yet precise. This is your attention. The test is simple. Can you hold it steady in the invisible wind of your mind? Can you watch your own thoughts drift by without tipping the scale? The moment you do, Ma'at smiles. The heart lightens. The field around you feels a little clearer. Across time and continents, different cultures drew the same map in different ink. The sky and clouds, the riverbank and water, the breath and the gap. Each spoke of the same mystery. The observer is the bridge between worlds. Without the observer, existence collapses into noise. With the observer, chaos organizes into harmony. This is why you were meant to pause today. Because the pause is the oldest temple, older than stone, older than prayer. The ancients built pyramids to remember what your lungs already know, that the space between inhale and exhale is the birthplace of creation itself. So when you stop for that half second today, between the message and the reply, between the thought and the word, you are standing where priests once stood, where monks once breathed, where prophets once listened. You are practicing the oldest art, holding the world in stillness long enough for it to become new. Let's bring this from metaphor to muscle. You don't need a temple of limestone or a monastery's hush. The laboratory of stillness is right here, in your own ribcage. The ancient initiates built pyramids to harness cosmic energy. You can align your breath to harness coherence. This practice isn't about withdrawing from the world, it's about re-entering it with clearer vision. Take a moment to settle where you are. Let your shoulders drop, your spine lift, your jaw loosen. You don't have to look spiritual. You just have to become honest. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Feel the ground beneath you steady, neutral, holding you without condition. Begin by noticing your natural breath without interference. Air slides in, air slides out. Let the first few cycles be diagnostic rather than performative. Where does the breath stop? In the chest, the throat, the belly? That's where your story lives today. Simply witness it. Each time your mind comments, "This is silly," or "I'm doing it wrong," gently acknowledge the thought and return to sensation. Observation, not correction. This is the Quantum Zeno at work inside your body. What you observe with steadiness begins to hold in awareness long enough to change. Now, invite coherence. Inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4, feeling the air widen the ribs. Hold softly, not by clenching, but by resting in that small pause where everything waits. Then exhale through the mouth for a count of 5, letting tension drain like water sliding off a slope. Between exhale and the next inhale, notice the second pause, smaller, darker, like the space between notes in music. That's the gap. Rest your attention there for just a heartbeat. The body is breathing. You are observing. 2 rhythms overlapping the physical and the quantum bridging matter and awareness. Repeat this cycle a few times. With each round, notice how the body begins to synchronize with something quieter underneath. The edges of thoughts blur. Sound becomes clearer, yet less invasive. You're not trying to transcend sensation. You're letting sensation become the path home. The breath isn't a ladder to climb, but a circle to inhabit. Each loop writes coherence into your nervous system, the way gentle waves polish stones smooth over time. As you continue, place one hand over your chest, one over your abdomen. Feel the temperature beneath your palms. The upper hand senses emotion. The lower hand senses instinct. Between them is the bridge of awareness. When both rise and fall together, you're an integration, heart and gut conversing without the mind's interference. If one moves more than the other, simply notice. Don't force. The field doesn't respond to effort. It responds to honesty. Now bring to mind a situation you've labeled as a test, something pressing, maybe unresolved. Don't dive into the drama. Just hold it lightly at the edge of your awareness, like a distant object seen through calm water. Breathe toward it, not through it. On the inhale, imagine drawing that situation into the field of your heart. On the exhale, release any compulsion to fix it. You're not commanding outcomes. You're stabilizing perception. The Quantum Zeno principle says observation stabilizes what is seen. Your calm observation stabilizes clarity, not chaos. Stay with 3 full cycles of breath. With each exhale, whisper inwardly. Stillness first, action second. You may feel warmth or tingling. You may feel nothing. Either is fine. The goal is not sensation but presence. What's occurring underneath is subtle neurocoherence. Your heartbeat and breath begin to entrain, sending new signals up the vagus nerve to tell the brain, we are safe enough to see clearly. In that safety, your next thought is no longer reaction, it's insight. This is how wisdom surfaces not as thunder, but as quiet certainty after the pause. For daily life, shrink this practice into micro-protocols. Before you open a message, inhale once and feel the space behind your sternum. Before you speak intention, notice the tiny gap between impulse and tongue. While waiting at a light, let your exhale lengthen by 1 beat. These are not idle gestures. Each small coherence interrupts the automated script that keeps rewriting your past. The more you practice, the more the pauses start appearing by themselves, unforced, intuitive, like invisible hands catching you before you tumble into reaction. If at any point this feels overwhelming, perhaps emotions rise or dizziness flickers, pause the exercise. Open your eyes. Look around. Name 3 visible objects. Feel your feet on the floor. This grounds your nervous system. Remember, this is educational, not medical guidance. You're retraining attention, not forcing physiology. With time, the body learns that observation is safety, not threat. End this session with one last deliberate breath. Inhale through the nose, draw light, presence, and dignity. Hold briefly, feel suspension, possibility. Exhale through the mouth, let the shoulders and the day release. Then whisper inwardly, I am the observer of my breath, not the prisoner of my pace. That single recognition turns practice into embodiment. As you open your eyes, the world looks the same, yet something essential has shifted. You've just proven that stillness is portable. You can carry this protocol into meetings, streets, arguments, or moments of beauty. The breath does not belong to meditation halls. It belongs to moments of choice. The more you inhabit it, the more life begins to meet you in the tone of your coherence. And somewhere, imperceptibly, the test begins to change because you have. Every transformation carries a hinge moment the instant you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what pattern am I stabilizing with my attention? That's when you cross from victim to creator, from being inside the storm to observing its design. You don't conquer the storm, you learn its rhythm. The same mechanism that once trapped you in loops becomes your passageway out. Quantum mechanics offers the poetry. Observation organizes probability. Translated into life, awareness organizes potential. You no longer fight circumstance. You shape its coherence through the quality of your noticing. Let's watch it happen in 3 real terrains: money, relationship, and leadership, the holy trinity of modern pressure. First, money. You've been taught to treat it as substance, but money is mostly momentum. It moves toward coherence, away from contraction. When you obsessively check balances from fear, you perform the quantum equivalent of staring at a particle until it freezes in scarcity. Each anxious glance encodes, not enough, into the field. The loop tightens, income feels delayed, bills appear larger, opportunities slide by because the observer keeps measuring lack. Now reverse the gaze. Next time you handle a bill, pause. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and while exhaling, feel gratitude for the circulation of energy itself. Don't recite affirmations, feel coherence. You're not pretending abundance, you're stabilizing the perception that money is motion, not judgment. Within weeks, you'll notice how your decisions change. You negotiate calmly, spend with clarity, attract counterparts who operate at that frequency. The numbers follow your coherence, not the other way around. Second, relationship. Most conflicts repeat not because two people are incompatible, but because their breath rhythms synchronize in tension. When one tightens, the other mirrors it unconsciously. Arguments escalate through sympathetic contraction. The next time someone triggers you, treat the trigger as the bell of a monastery. Pause before answering. Feel the air brushing the back of your throat as you inhale. Sense the slight warmth of exhalation. Let your gaze soften, even if your mind still shouts. You'll notice a moment, a 0.3-second window, where your words could either sharpen or soothe. That's the quantum gap. If you speak from that space, tone changes before content does. The field between you reorganizes. Both nervous systems downshift. Often, that's all reconciliation needs, not logic, not apology, but coherent presence transmitted through breath. Relationship doesn't improve by winning arguments. It improves by synchronizing safety. Third, leadership, the art of holding many fields at once. Whether you guide a team, a family, or your own inner council, leadership means maintaining coherence under observation. Others subconsciously entrain to the most stable frequency in the room. If you're agitated, you amplify chaos. If you're centered, you become the organizing principle around which solutions crystallize. Before big decisions, step away for 60 seconds. Close the door, inhale to the count of 4, exhale to 6, and visualize your breath expanding outward like ripples in water. Feel your internal metronome slow until you can sense time's elasticity. From that state, choose. The decision won't be made by fear's timeline. It will be made from timelessness. This is how coherent leaders seem clairvoyant. They're not predicting, they're perceiving wider bandwidths of possibility. The turning point, then, is neither mystical nor mechanical. It's relational. You stop trying to control outcomes and start tending to the field from which outcomes arise. When inner stillness becomes your first response, external order follows naturally. The world is responsive, not random. Every event that once felt punishing now reveals itself as feedback, a mirror inviting new calibration. You were never being tested by fate. You were being shown your frequency. In this phase, your language changes. Problem becomes pattern. Failure becomes feedback. Delay becomes timing. Each reframing loosens the loop. You discover that you can hold paradox, uncertainty, and trust in the same breath without splitting. The victim mind demands closure. The creator mind tolerates ambiguity long enough for beauty to appear. That tolerance is spiritual stamina. It's what the mystics meant by faith, not blind belief, but the capacity to remain coherent while the outcome gestates in unseen dimensions. To live this way requires humility. You will still flinch, still forget, still tumble into reactivity. But every time you remember, you are performing the real miracle, collapsing the wave of the old story and re-observing yourself into a higher one. Each conscious breath edits destiny in micro increments. That's why the test isn't about passing once. It's about noticing again and again until noticing becomes your nature. You'll feel the shift physically. Moments that once clenched your stomach now expand your chest. Conversations that used to drain you now clarify you. Money stops symbolizing survival and starts symbolizing flow. Leadership stops being pressure and starts being presence. You don't chase peace, you emit it. And paradoxically, this quiet power draws life toward you faster than all your former effort combined. The field moves differently around a coherent human. You become what the Buddhists call a still point in the turning world. People sense it without knowing why. They pause when you enter. Ideas stabilize in your orbit. Chaos organizes near your calm. That's not charisma, it's coherence. You've become the mountain reflecting the sky on the lake of your breath. The Quantum Zeno Effect plays on, but now it's your ally. Your sustained awareness holds new realities steady long enough for them to mature. This is the crossing. From controlling conditions to cultivating coherence. From testing life to realizing life is testing your steadiness, only to return you to power. When you finally pass the test, You don't celebrate like a student graduating, you exhale like a universe remembering its design. Somewhere along this path, you realize that all the teachings, quantum or ancient, have been pointing to one tenderness, the dignity of being aware. Not powerful in the loud sense, but in the quiet recognition that awareness itself is the rarest form of love. The world doesn't need more domination. It needs more coherence, more people who can remain still without withdrawing, who can breathe in chaos and exhale clarity. Stillness is not retreat. It's resonance. It's the place where action and silence hold hands. You begin to understand that your worth was never contingent on productivity, performance, or perpetual motion. The culture worships speed because speed prevents self-recognition. When you pause, you return to the unconditioned part of you that cannot be monetized or measured, the still observer who has been watching your entire life unfold. That presence doesn't hustle for approval. It hums with intrinsic belonging. It's the same hum you hear in forests, in newborn laughter, in the space between two heartbeats. You sense that life isn't a ladder to climb, but a circle to inhabit, where every breath brings you back to the center you never actually left. This is the essence of human coherence. To live as the sky lives unchanged amidst shifting weather. The clouds of thought may darken or brighten, but the sky never competes with them. It simply offers space. When you live from that spaciousness, you begin to notice beauty you once rushed past. The color of morning light on concrete, the symmetry of someone's handwriting, the sound of your own footsteps syncing with your heartbeat. These are not small things. They're proof that consciousness can turn ordinary moments into sacred architecture. You also realize that stillness is not isolation, it's participation at a finer frequency. When you walk into a room anchored in coherence, you become public art, a living sculpture of presence that quietly rearranges the emotional geometry of everyone there. You're no longer seeking meaning in external validation. You're generating meaning through the field you broadcast. This is why a single calm person can stabilize an entire group. The still observer within you is contagious. In the best way, it invites others to remember their own center. There's a subtle humility in this recognition. You stop trying to save people and start seeing them. You understand that every soul is unfolding at its own rhythm, and that your role is not to accelerate their process but to embody patience so profoundly that they feel safe to unfold beside you. That's compassion in its highest form. Non-interference combined with unwavering presence. It's what the sages meant when they spoke of right action movement arising naturally from stillness, rather than from the ego's urgency to fix. Philosophically, you start sensing that stillness isn't the opposite of movement, but its origin. Every note in a symphony depends on the silence beneath it. Every heartbeat rides on a gap between beats. The entire universe vibrates because emptiness allows vibration. You are that emptiness discovering itself as rhythm. And when you see this clearly, humility and wonder become indistinguishable. You don't need to impose significance. Existence is already sacred by design. The human message behind all this is profoundly simple. You belong, not because you've proven anything, but because you're made of the same awareness that holds galaxies together. Your breath is the local version of cosmic expansion. Inhale, the universe enters. Exhale, you give yourself back. Between them, life recognizes itself through you. That recognition is love in its purest form. So, dignity is not something you earn. It's something you remember. Belonging isn't granted by others. It's revealed through awareness. Meaning isn't found in extraordinary events. It's distilled through ordinary pauses. Every time you breathe consciously, you honor that sacred ordinariness. You become a guardian of stillness in a world addicted to motion. And that service, though invisible, is revolutionary. When you rest in this knowing, the fear of failure dissolves. You see that existence has never been grading you. It's been dancing with you. Every mistake was a misstep in rhythm, not a moral flaw. The universe doesn't demand perfection, it invites participation. You were meant to dance, to breathe, to notice, to pause. The test was never about passing or failing. It was about remembering the rhythm beneath all appearances, the rhythm of stillness that moves worlds. In that realization, your life becomes a quiet masterpiece, not an escape from the human, but a full embrace of it. You'll still feel, love, grieve, and aspire. But now, Each emotion passes through the spacious compassion of the observer. You become both participant and witness, human and field, drop and ocean. That is coherence made flesh. And from that coherence, new worlds quietly take shape. Now, before you go, let's seal this understanding in something simple, physical, and sacred, a brief ritual to integrate the field into breath, thought, and choice. Sit upright or stand where you are. Let your shoulders relax, palms open. The world outside you will keep spinning, but for the next minute, we create a microcosm of coherence right here. You and the field, noticing each other again. Take a slow inhale through your nose. Feel the air pass through the bridge of your ribs, down to the base of your spine. Let that breath gather all the fragments of your attention scattered through the day. Hold gently at the top, not as control but as reverence. This is the still point, the quantum gap, the space where intention listens for instruction. Now exhale through your mouth, long and deliberate. Feel the body soften as if releasing static from your nervous system into the ground. That was breath 1. Again, inhale, draw light into the heart, awareness into the lungs. Sense the pulse behind your sternum, the quiet electric shimmer that has been your companion since the first breath you ever took. Pause. Notice how even in stillness, life continues moving through you. Then exhale, let go of effort, of needing to understand, of measuring progress. Trust that what you've stabilized in awareness will organize and form. That was breath 2. One more. Inhale this time, feel the entire field inhaling with you, as if the space around your body is also breathing. Hold the pause lightly, like a hand resting on the edge of a bell. In that pause, silently choose one word that embodies the state you want to carry forward. Clarity, peace, courage, trust. There is no wrong word, only the one that feels like home. Exhale slowly, letting that word echo through the chest, down the arms, into the air. Let it become part of the field you're shaping. That was breath 3. Now, speak your declaration quietly or in your heart. I choose to your word as the observer. Feel the resonance of that sentence settle like light into your body. You're not commanding reality. You're attuning to it. You're encoding your next timeline through coherence, not force. From here, imagine your breath field expanding about 8 feet around you, a subtle sphere of calm, invisible but tangible. This is your temple, your portable stillness. As you move through the hours ahead, remember, the pause is the doorway, the breath is the bridge, the observer is the key. You no longer need to seek the test's results. You are the result, the evidence that consciousness, once stabilized, organizes the world gently around it. So when you step into the noise again, traffic, headlines, expectations carry this rhythm. 3 coherent breaths, 1 chosen word, a single declaration of awareness. That's enough to recalibrate the field, to remind existence that you're awake inside it. If this message met you at the exact moment you needed it, it isn't coincidence. It's coherence calling you to practice remembering. Share this video not as content, but as ceremony, a way to widen the circle of stillness in a restless world. And if you'd like to anchor deeper into this rhythm, subscribe to this frequency. Each video here is not an episode but a reminder, another doorway into the same living awareness breathing through us all. As you leave, one final breath. Inhale possibility. Hold gratitude. Exhale blessing. Let your stillness travel ahead of you like light. You were meant to pause today, not to stop life, but to remember that you and life move as one. And from that remembered unity, every test becomes the same invitation to breathe, to notice, to create. The observer within you has already passed.